Every year, hundreds of soldiers attempt Special Forces assessment and selection. It's a 3-week crucible designed to test your limits and select the Army's next warriors. But in this video, I'm going to share the lesser-known side to SFAS, the parts told by data, attrition rates, the attributes the selected possess, and what steps you need to take to maximize your chances. Historically, the selection rate has been 36%, and the minimum standards are a 5-mile run in 40 minutes, 3-hour 12-mile ruck, 28 hand-release push-ups, a 12 2-mile run, and 6 pull-ups. While physical fitness is essential, you'll be surprised by what the data shows about intelligence and other traits. The data on SFAS goes all the way back to 1991, where a study found that ruck march times and the APFT were strongly correlated with being selected, but rucking was most impactful, and in a 2010 study, candidates who ran fast were found to be 90% more likely to be selected. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, fast ruckers in that same study were found to have 9 times greater odds of being selected than the average. Aside from rucking's outsized effect on selection success, the 2010 study's other revelation was that cognitive ability tests ranked ahead of running, pull-ups, the APFT, and obstacle course. Candidates who performed 1 standard deviation above the mean on the TABE, which is an adult aptitude test, and the D-Lab, which tests potential for learning a foreign language, were 139% and 88% more likely to be selected. As a reminder, the top performers on the APFT were 86% more likely to be selected. However, just several years ago, a 2019 study was published by the US Army Research Institute. They also found that cognitive ability was a significant predictor, but to a much lesser degree. Here are the predictors of selection success ranked along with their odds ratios. The higher the odds ratio, the more strongly the attribute was correlated with selection success. Interestingly, the TABE score had a 2.39 odds ratio in 2010 and then a 1.46 odds ratio in 2019. Now this is where most people say that the research is overkill, and I tend to agree, but there are 4 major nuggets of wisdom which I pulled from this research and incorporate in my athletes training. Number 1 is that rucking performance is far and away the greatest predictor of success, and since 95% of candidates don't realize this, they're not training optimally. Second is that running fast is key. While it's not as important as rucking, it's a major factor. You won't make it to day 1 with a slow run time. Third is that calisthenics don't have close to the effect on selection success as rucking or running, and this should inform how you train. Weighted pull-ups and push-ups are great, but if you're doing a program with hundreds of calisthenics per day, it's worth understanding the why behind such high-volume calisthenics, especially when there are other aspects of training which are far more important. And this ties directly to my 4th takeaway, which I'll get to in a second. But what about just trying hard and having a relentless never-give-up attitude? That has to count for something, right? Well, in the 2019 study, the researchers actually tested for grit across 5 attributes, and the odds ratio for grit score and ambition were 1.22 and 1.25, statistically significant but to a very small degree. The data showed that those with the lowest 25% in terms of grit score had a 28% chance of getting selected, and those scoring in the top 25% in terms of grit scores had a 36% chance of getting selected. Now I want to be clear that I am not downplaying the importance of grit. In fact, it could be that we just don't have a good way to test it independent of physical assessments. But my point is that your energy should be spent on what we know drives improved outcomes. And what does make a massive difference is high levels of lean mass and low body fat. Candidates in the top quarter of lean mass had a 58% selection rate, and the leanest 25% of candidates had a 52% selection rate. Just take a look at these 2 charts on the screen. It is very clear that bigger and leaner candidates outperform the rest. But what's the reason for this? My takeaway is that at its core, selection across all branches comes down to 5 key factors. But ultimately, there's 2 which are most important and are tied directly to lean muscle mass and body fat percentage. First is endurance. There's a minimum threshold of endurance you need to get your foot in the door, and every extra pound of dead weight or fat you carry is going to slow you down, so it pays to be lean. Second is strength. Once you do get to selection, you need to be strong enough for logs, boats, and heavy load carriage. Whether you're 200 pounds or 150 pounds, you'll be rucking with the same weight. The point is, without endurance and strength, there is no path forward. If you fail to perform, you will be dropped. More on how to improve these later on. Third is character. Peer evaluations and interviews are designed to weed out the bad apples, so you need to be a good person. And fourth is situational awareness and intelligence. You're interviewing for a high-stress, high-stakes job, and others' lives could be in your hands. Being able to think quickly on your feet and problem solve is a must. And of course, Fifth is willpower. With this knowledge, here's a roadmap to maximize your chances of selection success. For this, I want you to take out a pen and paper, and then write down yes or no whether your goal is to be a special operator or not. Next, I want you to think about your sleep and nutrition from this past week. Write down how it was on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is terrible and 5 is perfect. Then, think about your consistency and effort this past week for your strength and endurance training. So at this point, we have whether you want to be a special operator or not, and then we have scores on whether your actions actually reflect your goals. If you don't have all 4s or 5s on that paper, then you need to have an honest talk with yourself. The truth is that training for selection is 100% on merit. It's a very simple equation of you putting in the work, recovering, achieving results, and then performing at selection when it matters most. If you fail to put in the work, you'll fail to perform. Click to watch the next video to bulletproof yourself for selection.